Well, I know that my mother's two heritages were Irish and German, but even in both of those cases, you would have to go back a generation to get to the people who had traveled. So there were no accents left, no German accents, and no Irish brogues. But both of their relatives had come to St. Louis in about 1840. Well, we would go and visit. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, in the middle of the country, but both of these families, the German family and the Irish family, had come to St. Louis, and we went as children with my grandmother and my mother every summer to visit in St. Louis. So we actually saw the relatives, and we had the most wonderful summers with them. There was in St. Louis, Germantown part that had all been settled by Germans, wonderful German restaurants. And, you know, the people, these were ancient people looking to, from my point of view as a child, they looked ancient. and the men wore three-piece suits, and the women were very, very beautifully dressed in kind of old-fashioned clothing. And we would take them out to dinner in a German restaurant. And then we would go and see the Irish relatives, and we would go out to dinner with the Irish relatives. And I have to say the German ones were much stricter. And so as a child I was much more inhibited as to how I could behave at the table. And the Irish relatives were more fun. But St. Louis was more fun, Willa, because it was a much bigger city, had escalators, no escalators in Omaha when I was a child, and a wonderful park system and summer opera. And, and I saw my first musical, I saw Carousel in an open-air opera in St. Louis when I was about 8, you know, younger even than you. So I do have a sense of the heritage, because we saw these elderly people when we would go and visit. And, you know, they're all gone, but some of that family still is alive, from my point of view as a child.
Hi, I'm Pog.
Okay, so as a little extra part of the other interview, would you like to tell me about your dad?
Sure. After high school, he was so young when he graduated, he couldn't go to Princeton, so he went to high school in Long Branch for a year and studied Greek and Latin. And while there, he lit gas lamps in Shrewsbury, where he lived, to earn money for college.
But why gas lamps?
Because there wasn't any electricity yet.
Wow, impressive.
And then the next year he went off to college.
How old was he?
He was 15 when he went to college.
All right,
They
thank you,
called him the
Pop.
class baby. You're welcome. They didn't tell one specific story, but my dad talked a little bit about his growing up, and his father was a minister, and they were very poor, and they never had enough wood to burn to keep the house warm. So when he got older, he had his own house. He had rows and rows of firewood that was like 20 feet high.
That's funny. So where were you born and raised?
I was born in New Jersey and raised in New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore.
So where do you live now?
New York. And my mom said when I was 5, all I wanted to do was go to New York.
So, how were you raised? In what fashion?
I think pretty liberally. We were allowed a lot of freedom. We lived in a big house on a big piece of property, and so we sort of were allowed to go wherever we wanted to go.
That's nice. And the last question is, what is your connection to nature? And what was and what is your connection
My
to
connection
nature?
to nature is very strong because of growing up on the ocean and then spending 6 weeks or more of each summer on Lake Wawashkash in northern Ontario. So there's a very strong connection to water and rocks and, the backwoods and birds.
But so I go to Canada now because your family went. That's nice.
Right.
I love that. Thank you. That was
You're welcome.
short and fun.